Hello there, Ben Bowers, the Spirit Specialist, and I am here today to talk to you about a new release from one of my favourite distilleries and one that is local to me. This is the Spirit of Yorkshire Filey Bay IPA Batch 2. IPA Finish, you may have seen the first video that I did. IPA is probably one of my favourites out of the entire range, and what I love about this, not only does it great tasting whiskey, but it really highlights the close relationship that the Spirit of Yorkshire distillery have with the Wold brewery, which is also owned by the co-founder of the distillery, Tom Mellor. So it's a fantastic way of kind of showing those close links. It's basically unique within the industry to be able to do a beer finish whiskey literally on the same day. You're having to travel 5 miles, basically, not even that, to disgorge the casks, fill it, refill it, that sort of thing, and play around with it. Now, fortunately, I also have quite a bit of, well, this has kind of been stocked up with where I've done various tastings that I've had IPA on, plus sample bottle, plus things like that. I've got a fair amount of the batch 1 left. What it means is that as they do extra batches ongoing, I'll be able to do a progression because I also have a tasting bottle of the batch 2. So what I'm going to do is a side-by-side between batch 1 and batch 2 to see if there's any development, whether there's any changes in that sort of thing. Older stock in the batch 2, obviously. Hopefully that'll be enough to give it some kind of difference. Now, if it tastes exactly the same as batch 1, not really bothered because I absolutely love batch 1, but let's see what we do. But before we do that, let me give the background information about the distillery itself, if you weren't aware, and also how this IPA finish does actually work.
The Spirit of Yorkshire distillery was founded in 2016 by Tom Mellor and David Thompson. Tom was an arable farmer who set up the Wold brewery in 2013 and already had ideas about opening a whisky distillery in conjunction, and so partnered with long-standing friend and marketing expert David to set up the new Spirit venture. The barley used for both beer and whisky production is grown on Tom's own fields, with milling, mashing and fermentation taking place at the brewery 4.5 miles away from the distillery itself. If the distillery was in Scotland, this would not be allowed due to Scotch Whisky Association regulations. In planning the distillery, Tom and David enlisted the help of legendary distillery consultant Jim Swan, who was well known around the world for assisting new distilleries such as Cavallan, Kilchoman, Penderyn and Lindores Abbey before his untimely death in 2017. The house style will ultimately be akin to the likes of Glenlivet, fruit-forward but somewhat delicate in body. The master distiller is a young man named Joe Clark. Joe's first job in the whisky industry was as a part-timer in the York branch of the whisky shop, at that time managed by none other than yours truly. His passion and enthusiasm was obvious from the very start, and he has worked tirelessly to ensure the early spirit releases from the distillery, under the brand name of Filey Bay, are of the highest quality. However, as is a legal requirement whenever I discuss Joe, I am obliged to show you this picture of Joe with our good friend Ollie Chilton of the Whisky Exchange during a trip to Islay. Feel free to ask him about the long hair, it's quite the story. In addition to 2 copper pot stills, a directional arm can connect to a 4-plate column still, which enables them to play around with reflux and redistillation. Maturation takes place principally in first fill ex-Bourbon casks from Old Forester, although plenty of experimentation has been done with other cask types and finishing. Indeed, the current core range features a finish using Muscatel wine casks and an STR ex-Rioja cask finish. STR, or shaved, toasted and recharred, is a signature of Jim Swan's legacy. Filey Bay Flagship, however, can be seen as the key introduction to the Filey Bay flavour profile, with light, fruity and creamy notes throughout. Unlike other recent new whisky distilleries across the UK, Spirit of Yorkshire never had any intention to delve into the massive gin or growing rum market, which would have given them an early and potentially lucrative revenue stream. The only concession they've made was the release of a whisky and malt spirit cream liqueur at the end of 2020, allowing visitors to their distillery who didn't drink whisky the chance to still appreciate their output. Filey Bay IPA Finish has a somewhat convoluted process to get to bottle, but it exemplifies the close connection between the distillery and its sister brewery. Ex-Bourbon barrels that had previously held Filey Bay Flagship Single Malt whisky were then filled with Wold Scarborough IPA beer to rest in cask for about 9 months. To the team's initial surprise, the beer went into cask at an ABV of 5.1%, but came out at a higher strength of 9.6%. You can find these higher strength beers bottled as Barrel Wave IPA. On the very same day the beer was disgorged from the casks, whisky aged around 5 to 5.5 years old, in the case of this second batch, that otherwise would have become Flagship Single Malt, was refilled into them and left for around 6 months to marry the influence of the ale within the wood. As with batch number 1, there's no designated number of bottles in this release, and it's bottled at 46% ABV.
So let's make sure we get the bottles in the right order. So this is batch one. So you can go over there. I don't think you can actually see this shelf on the camera. And let's get batch 2 in this one. And let's do batch 2 first, and then we'll do the comparison with batch 1. So batch 2, because batch 1 is, you can't see it, but it's over there. Batch 2. Nice sort of light citrusy note on there. But then there is this citrusiness, which kind of evolves slightly, and it gets a slight biscuity, slight hoppy note. Sort of like a fresh hoppiness. Now, I probably said this on the first video as well. IPA is a type of beer that I kind of struggle with. I previously always associated it with kind of like a sourness. You know, a lot of IPAs I came across were very kind of like sharp, sour, grapefruity, that sort of feel. But over time, as I've kind of progressed my drinking, my personal palate has changed, but also as I've been trying to drink other IPAs, I found that actually that's not a small proportion, but that is a proportion of what IPA flavour can be. But it does tend to be slightly on the fresher side. It does tend to be slightly citrusy. You know, sometimes it can go grapefruit root, sometimes it can go lemon, but it's biscuity as well. But you do get a lighter feel to the beer itself. And that kind of comes through there. What starts off as citrusy notes that's classic to the Filey Bay Flagship, it softens slightly but gets a little hoppier as well. So there is a definite on the nose, there is a clear beer influence, but it's not dominating, it's working really well with the flavour profile of the whiskey itself. And that absolutely carries on to the palate. There's a lovely lemon cream feel to this. Lemon cream, lemon puff biscuits, which is a flavour that I associate with Filey Bay generally, as sort of the house style. This light, creamy note, but there's a slight effervescence to this as well. The beer element, again, as with on the nose, is not up front. It's very much working with that profile of the whiskey itself. It's supporting, it's kind of adding an extra dimension without going, beer's here. It's very much, oh, you're enjoying this whiskey? The beer's here as well. I love that biscuity note that comes through. I love, again, there's a slight effervescence to it. It's sort of like tingles on the tongue a little bit. It's 46%, so it's not particularly high ABV. And I would think that actually bottling at, say, 48, 50, the higher alcohol is maybe going to dominate a little bit too much. That really quite subtle IPA element that's going on in here. It's there, but it's not overpowering. It's not upfront. It very much is working with the whiskey. It's two flavour profiles. They're actually complementing each other very, very well. It's eminently drinkable. There is this, now you start to get a bit more of that kind of lager-y feel. I know it's not lager, it's an IPA, but you do get a little bit more of that kind of IPA influence. It's just starting to come through a little bit more. So let's do a side-by-side, batch 1, batch 2. So on the nose, batch 1 feels a bit cleaner. We've got obviously younger whiskey in here. There's definitely more on the nose in batch 2. Batch 1 feels lighter, crispier, cleaner, but lacking something. It's a bit more citrusy, it's a bit more lemon peel on there. Whereas the batch 2, definitely richer, deeper, warmer. Not massively so, but there is a richness to this on the nose that is definitely lacking on the batch 1. Okay, let's go for the palate of batch 1. Similar, crisper, more citrusy, lighter in flavour. Doesn't feel as weighty. It's pretty clear that there's younger spirit in here. There's not a weight, there's not a texture. Markedly so, in fact. Batch 2 has much more creamy, silky weight to the mouthfeel, which then extends the complexity, extends the finish. The finish on this is quite considerably longer than the batch one. And I think that is literally down to, it's just older whiskey. You know, it's spent longer in cask before it's had the finish put in, and it's giving you more depth, it's giving you more complexity. Not that the batch one is bad, the batch one is still really good. But it's very, very interesting to see that development, that extra time in cask for the core whiskey, working even better. Because what it gives you, that extra weight, is it gives you a bit more of that feel of drinking an IPA, of having that influence, because beer itself has a texture. And on the batch one, the lightness of the whiskey, the youthfulness of the whiskey is sort of dampening down what would be itself a creamy, silky IPA beer. The weight, the extra texture to the whiskey, because of the time in cask, is helping the impression of more influence from that beer as well. It's an absolute belter. Again. They just keep doing it. I don't know how they keep doing it, but it's such a good advert for the distillery and what it can do by being owned by a brewery that are working so closely together. So if you do get the chance to try the Scarborough IPA and also the Barrel Wave, the Barrel Wave is one hell of a beer as well. Strong, but absolutely fantastic. I do highly recommend it. But yeah, this stuff is great. Love it. Absolutely love it. If you love beer, if you love whiskey, what more do you want? So that is me done. I shall see you at the next video. Oh no, I should probably tell you that you can get it from me. What a donut. So as you can see, it's on the shelf. It launched yesterday. I've been a little bit busy recently, a lot of stuff going on, so I didn't get the chance to do the video yesterday when it came out. That would have been the intention, but you can see it is on the shelf there. So along with the rest of the range as well, I've got the new batch 4 Muscatel cask as well. So www.spiritspecialist.com. UK shipping is available. I can't do outside of the UK at the moment, but I'm working on it. So that's now me done. I shall see you at the next video. Cheers.